My name is Anna, and I never thought I would be telling my story like this. If you asked me 10 years ago what my life would look like, I would have painted you a picture straight out of a family magazine. A neat little house with white siding and blue shutters, a husband who kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, kids who ran through the backyard with grass stains on their knees, and maybe even a golden retriever lying lazily on the porch. And for a while, I thought I had it. I thought I had the life I always dreamed of. We bought our first home in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom with a small yard and a creaky porch swing that I adored. I remember painting the living room walls myself, soft beige with white trim. It smelled of fresh paint for weeks, and I didn't mind because it felt like proof that this was ours. Our little kingdom. My husband, Mark, was a project manager at a mid-sized construction firm. He wasn't a millionaire, but he provided. He liked his routine, coffee with 2 sugars, leaving for work at 7:15 sharp, coming home tired but proud. I used to love that sound of the garage door opening because it meant the house was full again, alive. I worked part-time at the library. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved being surrounded by books, helping kids find stories, recommending novels to older women who reminded me of my mom. I liked the quiet, the smell of paper and dust, the rhythm of stamping due dates on cards. It wasn't much money, but between my small paycheck and Mark's salary, we were comfortable. For years, I thought that comfort was stability. That if we kept our heads down, worked, raised our son Ethan, and paid our mortgage, everything would be fine. That's what middle-class America teaches you. The dream isn't riches, it's security. But what no one tells you is that security can vanish overnight. The cracks started small. They always do. Mark and I weren't fighting every day. We weren't throwing dishes at the wall. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being partners and started being roommates. He'd sit in the living room after dinner, staring at his phone, scrolling endlessly, while I washed the dishes in silence. Sometimes I'd try to start a conversation. "How was your day?" And he'd give me the same answer every time. "Fine." Nothing more. At first, I told myself it was just stress from work. I mean, construction was unpredictable. One month his company had contracts everywhere, and the next month projects were stalled. He carried that stress on his shoulders. So I forgave the distance. I excused it. But then the distance grew. Weeks turned into months. We stopped laughing at stupid TV shows together. We stopped going for walks around the neighborhood like we used to. I would lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the gap between us like a canyon. I didn't want to admit it, but I was lonely. Lonely in my own house, lying next to the man I married. The divorce didn't come as a thunderclap. It came like slow rain, steady and relentless, until one day the ground was soaked and there was no way back. I remember the night, he told me. It was early spring. The air smelled of wet grass, and the sound of frogs came in faintly through the open window. Ethan had gone to bed, and Mark and I were sitting at the kitchen table. The light above us was harsh, buzzing faintly, like it knew what was coming. "I can't do this anymore," he said. Just like that. No build-up, no speech. 4 words that split my life in half. At first, I thought he meant the job. That maybe he wanted to quit, find something else. I even opened my mouth to say, "Then quit. We'll figure it out." But then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I knew. It wasn't the job. It was me. It was us. "I don't love you the way I used to," he said, and I swear my heart stopped for a second. You always think in those moments that you'll cry or scream or beg. I did none of those things. I just sat there, staring at the wood grain on the table, noticing how one line curved like a river, because if I looked at him I might break. He packed a bag that night. Not all his things, just enough for a few days. He said he'd figure out the rest later. I heard the garage door open, and for the first time, that sound didn't mean the house was alive. It meant it was empty. The weeks after were a blur. At first, I went on autopilot. I still woke up early to make breakfast for Ethan. Still packed his lunch. Still drove him to school. On the outside, I tried to keep everything normal. But inside, I was unraveling. The bed felt enormous with just me in it. The house creaked louder at night, every sound reminding me of absence. I tried filling the silence with TV, but it only made me feel lonelier. People talk about divorce like it's paperwork, lawyers, custody schedules. They don't talk about the emptiness. The way you stand in the grocery store, staring at cereal boxes, realizing you don't know what to buy anymore because half the things were for him. The way you cook dinner and push food around your plate because it feels wrong to eat alone. Friends tried to help. They invited me out for coffee, for dinner, for girls' nights. But when you're the first in your circle to get divorced, people don't know what to say. They mean well, but their eyes are full of pity. And pity feels like salt in a wound. My mother called every other day, her voice full of concern. "You're strong, Anna. You'll get through this." But strength wasn't what I wanted. I wanted my life back. Ethan was the hardest part. He was 12, old enough to understand but young enough to hope. He asked me once, late at night, "Is Dad coming back?" I froze. My instinct was to protect him, to say yes, to soften the blow. But lying felt worse. So I told him the truth. "I don't think so, honey." He turned his face to the wall and didn't answer. I sat there, listening to him sniffle quietly, feeling like I had failed him. After that, he changed. Not overnight, but slowly. He became quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped bringing friends over. He spent hours on his Xbox, headphones clamped tight, shutting out the world. Sometimes I'd stand in the doorway, watching him, wondering if he was slipping away from me too. Life after divorce isn't just about heartbreak. It's about logistics. Suddenly, everything doubled. Bills, responsibilities, decisions. The mortgage didn't care that Mark was gone. The electric company didn't care that my heart was broken. I was left balancing part-time income with full-time expenses. I started picking up extra shifts at the library, staying until closing, shelving books until my back ached. Some nights, Ethan sat at the corner table doing homework while I worked. I'd glance at him and feel both proud and guilty, proud that he was adapting, guilty that he had to. Neighbors noticed. They'd wave politely, but I could feel the whispers behind closed doors. "That's the woman whose husband left." In suburbia, divorce makes you an oddity, like a crack in the perfect picture. I told myself I didn't care what they thought. But the truth? I cared. Because every whisper reminded me that I wasn't enough. Not enough to keep him. Not enough to hold my family together. And that's where the real struggle began. Not with Mark walking out the door, but with me standing in the wreckage, asking, "Now what?"